Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a like up. Young and Restless ended a dramatic week with a flurry of flashbacks as Victor and Nikki were re-established in the restored Newman Ranch. Here's a look at two big stories taking us into next week, during which the iconic soap will mark its incredible 13,000th episode. The big Sharon/Heather murder mystery has begun to feel stalled for those who want to get on with the reveals. The writers are definitely slow-walking it. We even got an entire episode devoted to Heather's funeral. While I was disappointed we didn't get to see dead Heather again, the beats played were solid. It's always a good day when we get to see Michael and Lauren too. That said, Phyllis hounding Sharon is going to get old fast if it goes on much longer without some type of new development. If Red is unable to get Sharon to crack, she may have to resort to doing Chance's job for him. As we all know, she has the ability to hack into just about any system. So why not the security cameras in Daniel's building or near the river? It's mind-boggling that the Keystone cops in Genoa City have yet to take a look at these things, presuming they exist in a complex where a billionaire lived, or to question how Heather's body was transported to the river. Wouldn't they have searched Daniel's car for forensic evidence? For that matter, wouldn't they also have confiscated Sharon's car for the same reason, given she was admittedly the last person to see Heather alive? It's frustrating to watch soap murder mysteries because of the suspension of belief necessary to drag them out, but the reveals will be coming and hopefully there will be a significant payoff for a change. To conclude, Sharon's big mistake was in not taking into account the evidence other than the towels and phone she planted, or her nemesis' ability to hack, I suppose. One or both will bring her eventual downfall. Will she get a chance to confess before she's caught? Stay tuned. As Young and Restless fans know by now, Abby and Devin are getting married next week, and the big event is set to take place as the show marks its 13,000th episode at the restored Newman Ranch. Given the couple are fairly low-key these days and not involved in any drama, some were sure the nuptials, although beautiful, would be a big yawn. Enter Brighton James, Devin, who teased a big shock at the wedding. This set us to speculating about what, or who, might interrupt the big day. There were several tantalizing theories that fans would have loved to see play out, but there's one still to share, and it's a doozy. This is where you'll want to stop reading if you want to be surprised in the moment. As it turns out, Young and Restless itself kinda spoiled the surprise with a behind-the-scenes photo that gives away a little too much detail. One detail in particular. We already knew Brittany Sarpy, Elena, was back on set for the celebration, but apparently she was there for a much bigger reason as well. Our theory is that Nate's not only getting a new half-brother, but also a baby. As you can see in the group photo below, taken as the cast gathered to celebrate the soap's 13,000th episode, Scene Dominic. Nate is holding a wee tot and is standing beside none other than Brittany Sarpy, who played his character's ex-girlfriend Elena. It's a safe bet that the big wedding shocker is Elena returning with Nate's child in tow. Decide for yourself. The opinions expressed are my own. Please feel free to share your thoughts on this week's Young and Restless in the comments section. It had been years since Elena had disappeared from the small town of Ridgewood. Years since anyone had heard from her. The last anyone had seen her, she was walking down Main Street with Nate Harris, her fiancé, the two of them laughing and planning their future. The next morning, Nate woke up to an empty apartment, and Elena was gone, without a word, without a trace. No notes, no calls, just silence. Nate tried to keep busy, diving into work at the local auto shop, throwing himself into fixing up the old trucks that came through his garage. He didn't know what had happened, and the uncertainty gnawed at him. Was she in danger? Had she left because of him? His heart broke every day, not knowing if she was okay, or if he'd ever see her again. For years, Ridgewood carried on, life moving forward as it always does, but nothing could fill the emptiness left behind by Elena's sudden departure. Nate tried to date, tried to move on, but it was hard when his mind was still so tangled up in her memory. Then, just when he thought he had reached some kind of peace with the past, Elena came back. It was a crisp fall morning when the familiar blue sedan rolled into Ridgewood once more. The townspeople hadn't seen that car in ages, and it didn't take long for word to spread. Elena was back. Nate's stomach churned when he heard the news. He had spent so long wondering what happened to her, where she went, why she had left without a trace. His mind raced with 1,000 questions as he stood in the doorway of his shop, watching the car parked just down the street. Elena stepped out, her familiar face older, but still undeniably hers. She looked around the small town as if she had never left, her eyes lingering on the places she used to know. Nate felt a pang in his chest, a mixture of anger, relief, and confusion. What was she doing here? Why now? He wanted to walk over to her, to demand answers, but something held him back. It had been years. She wasn't the same girl who had promised him forever, and he wasn't the same guy who had been waiting for her to return. But before he could process the rush of emotions, Elena was walking toward him. She seemed nervous, her eyes flickering back and forth between him and the ground, as though unsure how to approach him after all this time. "Nate," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "I didn't know how to come back. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me." Nate opened his mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. He didn't know what to say. All those years of wondering why she left, all the pain of living with unanswered questions, and now she was standing in front of him. What was he supposed to feel? Before he could make up his mind, Elena spoke again, her words tumbling out in a rush. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't come back alone." Elena took a deep breath and placed a hand on her stomach, which for the first time, Nate noticed was slightly rounded. His eyes went wide as the realization hit him. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Nate's heart slammed in his chest, his mind reeling. His first instinct was to laugh, to brush it off as some kind of sick joke. But the look in Elena's eyes told him she wasn't playing games. This was real. This was happening. Elena nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "I know it's a lot to take in. I didn't know how to tell you, but I couldn't keep running anymore. I had to come back and face what I left behind." Nate took a step back, his head spinning. His breath felt shallow, his hands clammy. This was not what he had expected. After all these years, after all the unanswered questions, this was the bombshell she dropped on him. "Why didn't you say something sooner?" Nate found his voice, the words coming out more accusatory than he intended. "You just left without a word, and now you show up with a baby and expect me to just accept it." Elena winced at his tone, but didn't back down. "It's not that simple. I was scared. I had to leave. Things weren't safe for me, for the baby. I didn't want to drag you into it. And I thought, maybe it was better if I just disappeared. But I couldn't keep running anymore. I'm sorry. I've been trying to figure out how to make it right. And I know I can't undo the past, but I'm asking for your help now." The weight of her words hung in the air between them, and Nate felt the ground shift beneath him. This wasn't just about a disappearance. This wasn't just about a broken promise. There was a baby, his baby, that he didn't even know existed until now. He stared at Elena for a long moment, trying to process it all. His emotions were a whirlwind: anger, confusion, disbelief, but also something softer, something he hadn't expected. A flicker of hope. "Why now?" he asked finally, his voice hoarse. "Why come back after all these years?" "I couldn't stay away anymore," Elena said, her voice breaking. "I know I messed up. I shouldn't have come back sooner. Told you everything. But the truth is, I need you. I need you to help me raise this child. I can't do it alone." Nate looked down at her hand, resting on her stomach, his mind racing with the enormity of the situation. He had no idea how to fix what was broken between them, or if it could even be fixed. But one thing was certain: he couldn't ignore this. He couldn't pretend this wasn't real. There was a child on the way, and he had a part in bringing it into the world. His gaze lifted to meet Elena's, and for the first time in years, their eyes locked. She was asking for his forgiveness. But more than that, she was asking for a chance at something new, something neither of them had expected. "I don't know how this is going to work," Nate said quietly, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and hope. "But I'll try. For you. And for our baby." And just like that, the past started to fade away. The future, uncertain as it was, stretched out before them, filled with possibilities neither of them had imagined when they first fell in love all those years ago. Elena had returned, and with her, the promise of something new, a chance for redemption, a chance for love, and a chance to build a family together, starting, perhaps, with the very thing that had brought them back to each other: Nate's baby.